All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to create a game today that's going to be like, I don't know, Oregon Trail, choose your own adventure game from the days of old, if you will. And it's going to be kind of a fun game. It's going to be all text based. The player of the game is going to make choices based on, your storyline, and that's going to branch the game to different parts of your code. This is going to help you learn about using functions and using variables in Python. This is going to be focused on Python 3, but there'll be minor changes for Python 2. It should almost work out of the box for Python 2. The only thing I can think of that would be different would be raw underscore input instead of raw input. I'm not focusing it on Python 2, so that's all I'm really going to say about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, you're probably fine. We're also going to, use luck, make some randomness in our game so that it's not the same every single time. It's going to be good times. All right, so let's get started. First step is going to be to create sort of our landing screen, basically the text that they're going to see every single time. And we're going to name that intro. So we're going to create a function named intro. So I'm going to say def, and def is going to be all the way to the very left of the screen. Space, intro. Now the name intro has no special meaning here. It's just a variable name. It could be anything you want. You want to be careful that you don't use a name that's taken by Python as a keyword, but I know intro is good, so we're going to stick with that. Parenthesis, parenthesis, colon. We could put arguments in the parentheses. I'll show you that really soon, but right now, don't worry about that. And importantly, we're going to press enter after that. Now we're going to put in the introduction to our story. I guess I'll just quickly type something. Actually, before I do that, let's get started with the print line. So we're going to print this out straight away. So we'll type print space parenthesis, and now we're going to make this a multi-line print. So I'm going to type 3 double quotes. So double quote 3 times with no spaces in between. My font might make it look like there's a space in between, but there's not. So now we can print as many lines of print as we want. I'm going to type 3 double quotes again and a parenthesis just to make the highlighting go away because it kind of bothers me. And on line 3 right here, I'm going to start typing my stories. Alright, so there's my story, probably full of typos, and you notice that the text wrapping, doesn't exist usually in most text editors. The first step here is really to text wrap. I'm going to decide kind of arbitrarily that this is how wide my text is going to be so it prints out nicely. So I have the basic intro to my story, and of course you want to make it interesting. You want to grab their attention. This is supposed to be something they want to do. I think that's kind of interesting. You're on a desert island. It's a classic story. So now that we have our intro created, let's ask them if they want to explore the jungle or explore the beach. I'm just going to pose the question right here. We can ask the question a few different ways, but I'm going to pose it right here. I'm going to say, notice I have a couple mistakes here. So now I'm going to ask them if they want to explore the beach or explore the jungle. Let's make it simple. If I try to run this, see nothing happens. That's fine because I never actually called this function. So now we'll go down. Arbitrarily, I went down a couple of lines and I'll type intro, parenthesis, parenthesis. And notice that this is all the way to the left. And when I run it, it should print that out. Good. I could get a user input at this time and make some decisions based on that user input. It would be nice to have some ability to handle, like if they type something really weird and a few other things. Rather than try to code all that into my intro, I'm actually going to make a function for dealing with questions. It's going to allow me to refer to that function, and the function itself will handle a lot of the error handling and generally just make my code shorter and also work better. Because I like to, I'm going to make this be above this function. And I'll give myself some space. This function is going to handle questions, so I think it seems fitting that I'm going to call it question. So def question. And unlike the intro, this is going to have a whole lot of different arguments that go into this area right here. Specifically, it's going to have probably 3. And I'm going to make them optional, so I can call it without sending this arguments or not. And I'll show you what I mean later. Basically, I'm going to have the prompt for the question. So I'm going to name that prompt prompt, and I'm going to set that equal to type a 1 for first thing or a 2 for the second thing. In fact, maybe I'll go back and edit my intro to reflect that a little better. Another thing that I'd like to do is have a new line there. So I'm going to type a backslash, that's above the enter key, and the letter N. This is going to cause the question line to be spaced down by a line. If I type 2 of them, it would be spaced down by 2 lines. And I'm going to say type 1 or 2. Finally, I want to put a space after that because I don't want them to type right up against the number 2. That would look bad. And I like to put a little like greater than sign with a space after that. I think that looks the nicest. It's my first variable prompt. And now I'm going to have answer 1 is going to be the first answer that we're kind of looking for somebody to type, and that's going to be a number 1, comma, and then answer 2. And it's going to be a 2. And I'm putting these in quotes because I want these to be strings, not integers. I could make this handle even more questions. I could type answer 3 and whatever, but I'm not going to bother at this time. You could just add them in if you wanted this to be able to handle more possible answers. Again, this is a general function that's going to handle any kind of question answering. So I'm going to say ask, so this is another variable name that I decided on, ask equals input, parenthesis, and then my variable, which is prompt. I notice a lot of people spell prompt wrong. Make sure you spell prompt the same here as well as here. This and that. They have to match. Ask equals prompt. It's going to say type 1 or 2. And then we're going to look at what ask is. So we're going to say if answer 1 in ask, did they type a 1? If they type, say, 12, this is going to come up as a 1. So that's maybe a drawback of creating it this way, but I still think it's pretty good. We're going to return 1. And then we'll say elif answer 2 in, oops, ask, return 2. So now if they type a 1, we'll return a 1. I'll show you what returning means in a second. And if they type a number 2, it's going to return a 2. So far so good. And here's the error handling part. I'm going to type else. This doesn't take any kind of tests, so nothing after that. Else. Now we're going to tell them that they needed to type whatever answer 1 or answer 2 was. So answer 1 or 2 could be a 1 or 2, but you'll see that we can also pass variables to that and make it be other things. So this is going to be slightly more complicated. So I'll say print, parenthesis, quote, the word type, because I'm telling them type, I don't have to have a space here, quote, comma, so type answer 1, and spell answer right, A-N-S-W-E-R, comma, and then or, in quotes, comma, and finally I want some punctuation in my sentence. So instead of having a comma there, I'm going to put a plus sign. And then I'm going to type, in quotes, a period. And finally a parenthesis. What's going to happen now is if they type something that's not answer 1 or answer 2, it's going to prompt them to type answer 1 or answer 2. And then we're going to send this back to the beginning of this function. And we're going to include the prompt, answer 1, and answer 2. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We'll put this into action in just a second, and for mistakes that we might have made. Just briefly, before we get started, even looking for any mistakes, notice that these line 3, line 4, line 6, and line 8 all should be in line with one another. Really, they should be 4 spaces over, but they need to be in line with one another. The returns should be 4 spaces more, so a total of 8, and so should these 2 lines. It doesn't specifically have to be 8. 8 is just considered the best practice. Good, so I didn't get any errors, and that's fine. Maybe I'll say to 1, explore the beach, or 2, explore the jungle. That'll make more sense. Keeping with letting the editor handle spacing for me, I'm going to put my cursor at the end of that parenthesis and press enter. And notice it's automatically spaced 4 over. Alright, so I'm going to ask the question now. So I'm going to say answer equals question. So answer again, this is just another variable name that I thought of. And question is this question function up here that we just created. So answer equals question, and I'm going to ask this with the default values that are there. So this variable answer is going to become whatever's returned here. So either 1 or 2. Answer equals question, and now I'll say if answer equals, and notice that this is returning the actual integer number 1 or 2. So if it equals 1, colon, I don't have to put that 1 in quotes because it's an integer. If it equals 1, we're going to go to a new function now. This is going to be a branch in our story. We're going to branch to a new place. Let's see. If it's 1, it's going to be the beach. I'm going to name my function beach. So I'll call it beach parenthesis parenthesis. Press enter. And now I'm going to backspace 1, and it backspace me to be in line with if. And I'll say else. I don't actually have to test to see if it's a 2 because it's only going to return a 1 or a 2. By default, it's necessarily going to be a 2. So this will be the jungle. So I'll say jungle. Alright. If I run this now, I should get an error. No, I didn't. Okay, great. I'll get an error when I type a 1 or a 2 though, because these functions haven't been defined. Okay, so here it is. It says type a 1 or a 2. That's good. Now if I type a 3, it should say type 1 or a 2 and start over again. Alright, good. Type 1 or 2. So if I say type 2, now it's going to break, and that's okay. Awesome. So now my story is going to branch to 2 new places, beach or jungle. So somewhere before this intro at the very bottom, none of my story is going to be after this intro line. So somewhere above that, I'm going to space down all the way to the left. I'll write def beach parenthesis parenthesis colon. Just as a placeholder, I'm going to write pass, and then I'll write def jungle. Same thing, pass. If you had an error, if something went wrong, something didn't work right, make sure you read your error message like they're pretty clear. Name, jungle isn't defined. You didn't define jungle yet. Let's break this. Let me space that over. This is going to be a really common error. When I run this, I get indentation error. Unindent does not match any other outer indent level. And it tells you the line. It's on line 6. Line 6. It's messed up. Let's break this. If I run this, F5, indentation error. Expected an indent block. So that's a problem. This is also going to be an indentation. I'm going to delete this. Indentation error. It's sending the problem to beach, and that's because it's expected this to be indented. I could actually define beach right here. Def beach parenthesis parenthesis colon and define it right there. It would be kind of a weird thing to do, but I could. So let me put jungle back. So at this time, our story is going to branch to the jungle, and I'm not going to keep writing really. I'll write a little bit more just so you can kind of see the flow. Print. Oh, you know what though? I do want to show you how to change the default answer. So let's do that. So print triple quote, triple double quote, parenthesis, oops, triple. And now I'll type something new. I can actually use this whole basic thing here. I'm going to just straight up copy that. So I'm going to say Control C and paste it in there. So answer equals question, but this time I'm going to give a new prompt. Let's say I want to ask them if they want to go first. Well, let's say I didn't want to stick with the 1 or 2 deal that I've been using, and I want to actually say, I can make my prompt. I can say, quote, type S to swim or N to nap. Alright, so that would be my prompt. That's going to replace it. And let's go ahead and put the new line command in there. And now my S and N are what it's going to look like for right answers. It's still looking for 1 and 2 if I don't type something. So let's type S for the correct answer number 1 and N for the correct answer number 2. We'll run that. Whoops. I think I can deal with that with just a pass as well. So this happened at beach. So let's say number 1 for the beach. And now it says type S to swim or N to nap. And I didn't put a space there. See what I mean? If I type here, it's like right up against nap. And that's why adding a space there is really nice. So I should have a space there. But anyway, if I type 1 like it worked before, that's not going to work. It's looking for S or N. So this type S or N, this sentence was actually created right here. Answer 1 or answer 2. And that's because these were replaced by these strings here. So that's really powerful. Here I could ask some new thing, or if I wanted to, if taking a swim, if that was the end of the story, I could just print out a new line. I could say that would be the end of the story. Here, let's end the story real fast. Type 1, and I take a swim, and you swim out into the water, and you're eaten by a shark. At this time, maybe I want to handle playing again. So I can have a restart function. Whoops. And just call it just like that. And maybe down here. Oh, let me get rid of this. And down here, I could define it. Def restart. I can send them to this every time they die. If I wanted to, I could have a quip here. And instead of having this be a print line, I could have a quip. Pass the quip here. And then print my quip out. And finally I could ask them if they want to play again. So I could say ask equals question, or I should say be consistent. I'm going to call this answer. Let's send this a custom prompt. I don't have to worry about whether they type 2 or not. Well, I could. Let's worry about it. It's already looking for a 1 or 2, so I'm good there. And I could say if answer equals 1. And I will just send them back to intro. And otherwise, else, we could just print them a message. That's it. That's the end of the game. You know, and it's important to keep playing the game. Notice I'm playing it again and again and again.
Let's die again. So you swim out into the water and are eaten by a shark. Type 1 to play again. Type 2 to quit. Cool. So now we're just right back there at the intro. So
what I'm trying to do here is just play again and again and again, so I can check to see if there's any errors or problems, and just continually kind of go through the whole thing and keep adding to it. Now I can add to the jungle story, and I can add to the beach story, you know. But it would be really great to be able to have some form of luck in our story. I would like to be able to kind of have some odds and make some various different possibilities depending on whether the person was lucky or not. And so in order to get that, we're going to use randomness. And so randomness is actually really hard to code, so we're going to import the random function that Python has for us. And so we'll do that by typing import, I-M-P-O-R-T, and then random. And we're going to make a function to handle that too, of course. And I'm going to call it luck. So def luck, parenthesis, and I'm going to put odds in this. This is going to be the odds that we kind of have automatic default odds. And we can make these odds anything we want. If I want to make it like 50-50, that would be 1 and 2. So I'll make that 2. And we can override these in our code just like before. Let's first take a second and we'll pick a random number. So I'll say number equals, so number is just another variable name that I thought of, and then random dot rand int, RANDINT for random integer. Make sure you spell that correctly. I see that spelled wrong often. 1, comma, and then odds. And so this is going to be a number between 1 and 2, but if I send a different odds, I can say 1 and 10, or odds is 10, and then it'll be 1 and 10, or whatever. And now I'm just going to look to see if the number equals 1. I got to spell correctly. Equals, because equals is testing. Does this equal that? 1 equals sign is assignment. We're assigning this. Number is now whatever that random number is. In this case, we're testing. So I'm going to say if number equals 1, colon. And so I'm just going to return true or false. Capital T true. That's a Boolean. All right. Let's change this. They go for a swim now, and I can say if luck. And if I want it to be 50-50 chance, I'll just leave it blank. If I wanted it to be, a 1 in 5 chance, I'd put a 5 there. So I can change my odds as I call this. If luck. So if they're lucky, I don't know, print if you're lucky, you take a refreshing swim, otherwise, else, colon. So now this is following the else line. Else you die. Alright, let's do that. You do that, take a swim, so I don't know how this is going to go. You swim into the water, and you're eaten by a shark. Play again. And I got eaten by a shark again. And I take a refreshing swim. Finally, you notice that the code ends right there. If I put more here, after I take a refreshing swim, I could have more stuff going on. So I could just keep on going with my print. It'll end if you got eaten, because this takes you to a new function and then ends. Or it'll keep on going. So that's really awesome. This is how we're going to create our basic story, and we can have as many different functions that we name as we want. We can use luck as often as we want. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to make a part 2 video that's going to explain how you can use lists in order to have your character pick things up, carry things, add things to, say, your backpack or whatever, drop things, and so on. And this is actually also going to be the part 2 of another video that I'll be posting about drawing a map. Check that one out if you're interested in that. You could totally apply that basic code to this. You could have it, even the beach in the jungle could be part of your map. So think about that, look for that video, and have fun. Be creative.